right. Well, awesome. We've got a good group here, and I know there's probably a couple more folks who will keep logging in and joining us over the next couple of minutes, but we can go ahead and get started and let those folks trickle in as they're able to. Yeah, just thank you all so much for joining us this evening for our conversation, our Inside the Strategy conversation about how we are protecting California's food, water, and climate. We wanted to host this evening, this conversation specifically for Food and Water Watch members and leaders like all of you, just to give you behind the scenes look at the issues that we're working on this year and to have a chance to chat with some of the experts in the field. And today's event is an extra special one because it's a California exclusive. So we've specifically focused on inviting all of you, our California members, to really just give you a look at the top priorities for the year ahead. And, although I live on the East Coast now, I grew up in California, went to school in UCSD, still have family in the Bay Area. So this work is still really near and dear to me, even though I'm on the East Coast, because it just has such a big impact on the place that I call home, and my family and friends who still live there. So I'm really excited for what's in store for you for the next hour, what you're going to hear from the team. You're going to get some great updates from Chirag Bhakta, our California director, who's based in San Francisco. Maybe he can give you all a wave. And we also have Tomas Rebecki, our Central Coast organizing manager, who's based in Ventura. And we'll also have a special guest here with us tonight, Allison Huyet from Patagonia. Tomas will give her more of an introduction in a little bit. But first, we're going to kick off this evening with just a little bit of a presentation of some of the work that we're doing, the work that your support and generosity are driving. And then we've intentionally saved some time for questions and discussion at the end. And as you can see, we've also intentionally invited just a small group of you here tonight so that we really will have a chance to engage and dig into your questions towards the end of our presentation. So when we get to that time, feel free, you can come off mute and ask your question out loud to our speakers here today. So with that, Tomas, I'm going to turn things over to you to get us started and tell us about some of the work that's going on in California.
Yeah, thank you, Kate, and thank you all for joining us here on this beautiful evening. So yeah, I'm going to start off with a couple updates. Our first, to start off, my name is Tomas Morales Rebecki, and I'm based here in Ventura on unceded Chumash land, and I'm the Central Coast organizing manager. And I've been here at Food and Water Watch for 10 years. Coming up this year is my 10th year, so been here a long time. And we're going to talk about a really big victory here for the state of California, which actually it comes back to how I got started at Food and Water Watch. So uh, it's taken over a decade and lots of people power, lots of movement to get a fracking ban put into place here in California. So California, we actually used to be the third largest oil producing state back in 2011. And Food and Water Watch, we've always been against fracking. We were the first national organization to call for a complete ban on fracking over 10 years ago. We saw the dangers it posed to our health, our air, our water, and earthquakes, and so many other reasons why we shouldn't be doing this, especially in this time of a climate crisis. So we were one of the leading voices calling for a ban early on. And in 2011, we actually started Californians Against Fracking, a statewide coalition to push for that. Governor Jerry Brown at the time was very strong-headed about going forward with fracking. Like we bird dogged him. We put as much pressure as we could, but really we took the fight to the local level, and that's how I met Food and Water Watch in 2014. In my home county of San Benito, they wanted to put 1,000 new cyclic steam and fracking wells, and we thought this is not what we need right here in our beautiful county, and we decided to collect signatures and put a fracking ban on the ballot. And the only national organization that came to our help and was right behind us was Food and Water Watch. They gave resources. They came into our county, taught us how to organize, and also, yeah, we couldn't beat them dollar for dollar. They outspent us by $2 million, outspent us 15-1, but we beat them going door to door and with people power. And ever since then, I've been thankful and grateful enough to work for Food and Water Watch. I'm based here in the Central Coast, but we've done lots of work in banning fracking in other counties throughout California to build that movement: Monterey, Mendocino, Butte, and Santa Cruz. And in the meantime, too, we've built a national movement to ban fracking. We banned fracking in 2014, thanks to a lot of our organizers in New York and Washington and the state of Maryland. So after Jerry Brown left office, we had a better prospect with Governor Newsom coming into office. We put a lot of pressure, made sure it was a part of the election questions and debates, and he promised in 2021, after all the pressure, to call for a rule to be formed to call for a ban on fracking. So just a couple months ago, they held the first hearing on that, and we turned out dozens of speakers in favor of the ban. And now the CalGEM, our oil regulators, must respond to public comments before enacting the rule. So this is a huge, huge thing that people told us wasn't possible in 2014. Even the Sierra Club, when we reached out to them, they told us, like, we don't support a ban on fracking. Now the 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 conversation has shifted. All organizations and national groups believe and have pushed for this ban on fracking. But this does not include all other types of oil drilling, which is why we need to continue to push the governor to phase out all oil drilling and other enhanced forms like cyclic steam and acidizing. So this is a big win, but we need to keep fighting. And we only got here after years and years of community engagement and grassroots power. So it's thanks to people like you on this call that have been giving to this organization, believing in this organization, and volunteering for this organization for over 10 years. So let's give ourselves a little round of applause for this monumentous occasion. Cool. So next, the next big battle, that fracking ban is great, but another huge environmental justice issue that's been going on in the state of California for decades is neighborhood drilling. So we know from study after study that oil drilling next to homes, schools, and hospitals can lead to an increase of asthma, cancer, premature births. Here in the city and county of Ventura, we have lots of oil wells right next to schools, right next to homes. This picture right here is a picture of a gas compressor, which is right across the street from a school in our neighborhood. And I'll talk about that a little more later with Patagonia and how we're fighting that gas compressor. But it shows you how close these facilities are, and these facilities give off toxic gases and can explode. Some of these compressors will explode, or oil wells. So we don't need these dangers anywhere in our communities, but especially next to homes and schools. So frontline communities in Kern, LA, and here in Ventura County, we've been organizing and pushing for 3,200-foot health and safety buffer zones between oil wells. And other states like Texas and North Dakota, pro-oil states, they've had setbacks on the books for years. And we, supposedly the greenest state, have not had setbacks. So a lot, like fracking, a lot of this started at the local site fights and local movements. Here in Ventura County, we have a lot of oil and gas drilling next to homes. But thanks to our coalition building, our grassroots movement, we were actually able to get the Board of Supervisors to pass a fracking ban in 2020 here in the county of Ventura. It was a 2,500-foot setback from homes and schools. It was historic. It was the first setback in all of California. And it kind of sent that momentum too for the statewide movement, showing that if we could do it here in Ventura County, Big Oil's backyard, we can do it at the statewide level too. So after our legislators, our local legislators too, Monique Limon and other legislators in the state Senate pushed a bill to pass that 1,300-foot setback. Oil industry spent millions trying to stop it, but we were successful in passing it last year. But unfortunately, like here in Ventura County, the oil industry is spending millions of dollars to undermine and hijack our democracy. So in California, we have a unique law at the county and statewide level where if you collect enough signatures, you can pause a law that's either passed and put it to the voters to decide if they want it. Usually this is to stop like bad decisions by elected officials people don't like, but this was an overwhelmingly supported issue by community members and legislators. But the oil industry is spent over $20 million getting signature gatherers to lie to voters to tell them to put this on the ballot. So the same thing happened here in Ventura County in 2022. The oil industry spent millions of dollars and put the law on hold. They spent millions of dollars and lied at the ballot box and got our law undone here. So this is definitely very personal for us here in Ventura County. We saw the same playbook play out 2 years ago. Now they're trying to do it on the whole statewide level. So the law that was supposed to be protecting our communities, our homes, and our families is now on pause. We're going to have to be working really hard to fight back because, like they spent here $8 million in Ventura County, we're expecting them to spend $200 million statewide. But just like in other places and other places in the nation and here in California, it's really going door to door, speaking to our neighbors, people power that can be their power to spend as much money and lie as much as they want. So we're really working right now to get endorsements for our campaign from local, statewide groups, prepping our volunteer network for the campaign leadership roles, and really, we're really getting our national organization behind this too, because we believe this is the biggest environmental justice fight of the year in all of the country. So we're really looking forward to getting you all involved with that more, but also really winning this one for all of the state of California and getting our not revenge, but getting the protections we fought for here in Ventura County once and for all 4 years later. So it's going to be a big fight. We're going to be calling on y'all for your support. So stay tuned and we'll keep you updated. And you can go to the next slide. Cool. So like we were saying, a lot of these battles are not possible without coalitions, without allies, without community members, without people power. And here in Ventura, the city of Ventura and Ventura County, we're really lucky. We have a unique situation. We have one of the largest outdoor companies in the world centered here, but also a company that cares about the community, that has employees in these communities that are affected by fossil fuel infrastructure, and they show up with their time, with their resources. I'm going to introduce our speaker, my good friend of mine, Allison, in a second, but I just want to go through some of the great things that Patagonia does and how they show up here for the community. So they're based here on the west side of Ventura. It's a majority Latino neighborhood. It's also overburdened with pollution from fossil fuels and pesticides. And many of the employees at their facility or at their homes are exposed to a lot of these harmful chemicals. But Patagonia, their devotion to the environment and our community has shown since I've been here for the past 10 years. They will show up to our hearings to speak out. They'll use staff time, give their whole staff time off to come to important rallies and hearings. This picture of the gentleman all the way to the right with the shirt, that's their CEO, Ryan Galler. He actually showed up to our big rally a couple years ago too, and has done tours of the neighborhood with us, and has really spoken out when we need them to speak out in front of like the Public Utilities Commission or elected officials. And all these other pictures too are other Patagonia staff too, feeding, making sure that we're fed at these events, and yeah, the linking arms and taking part in direct actions like we did here at the school, fighting against the compressor. So I feel like we're really lucky to have Patagonia because they understand that the fight for environmental justice is really led by the local community. They don't come in to like take over spaces. They say, how can we support you best? And then they show up and they always fight for us. So today I have the honor of introducing a neighbor of mine and also a close ally. We've worked together for the past few years on statewide and local issues too. Allison Hewitt, just like myself, she's been at Patagonia for over 8 years, and she's the director of environmental campaigns after working a lot of different jobs at the org, like myself too. She lives here in Ventura too, has children in the area, and is affected by it. So she's big part of our coalition and big part of helping get the resources we need here locally. So let's give Allison a big welcome.
Hi, it's so good to be here with all you. I'm excited to talk and hear from you all too. I love that it's a nice intimate group, and yeah, I just feel really lucky to have partners like you all. That's how we operate. Yeah.
Definitely. And like I was saying, Patagonia is a unique organization. So you guys are a for-profit company, but also deeply grounded in a set of core values, like I said, with environmental justice and a real commitment to protecting our environment. A lot of other companies make this claim, but really it's just usually greenwashing for the public or for their investors. That's not the case with y'all. And while Food and Water Watch, we're a nonprofit and we don't take any corporate funding, including from Patagonia, we do have a strong organizing partnership doing real work on the ground together. So can you talk about how Patagonia has been putting your principles into action right here in our own backyard backyard in Ventura County, and why it's so important to get involved in your local community here.
Yeah, of course. And I'm gonna like give us a slight little history story of like when Patagonia was founded, because I think that is kind of part of where we are today. But engaging in Ventura and in our backyard, it's actually always been part of our company's DNA. So the company was founded in the early 1970s. In 1972, Yvon Chouinard, our founder, he and some of his surf buddies showed up to a Ventura City Council meeting. And the council meeting was about a channeling project that was going to be at the mouth of the Ventura River. And they were there because they were concerned about their surf break and like impacts to surfing. So imagine just like a bunch of young surfer guys at the Ventura City Council. And during that council meeting, there's a grad student named Mark Capelli who came and gave a presentation to everyone there, the community members, everyone who showed up, to really make a case on why this project should, be stopped. He did a slideshow with like these like photos of how alive the river was and how important it is actually to Ventura. Um, and as a result, they voted the project down. After that, I think for Yvon and folks at Patagonia who were starting this company, what they really saw is the power of advocacy and like one guy speaking up at what felt like a really small meeting, like just a city council meeting, and what impact that can have. And so after that meeting, actually, Yvon gave his first grant to Mark, and the organization was called Friends of the Ventura River. And then they actually offered up office space in our headquarters and a phone line, a landline, for the organization to operate. And so actually, if you ever go to our headquarters, there's actually a sign that says Friends of the Ventura River on one of the buildings. But really, I think that shows just kind of the where we started from, and this idea that what happens locally is really important, and we can also, like, people can have an impact if they show up and if they speak up. And I think for Patagonia, it also showed that we can help support these organizations, not only through funding, but actually through a lot of the other things, like Tomas, you were saying. Sometimes we show up and we bring food, or we just show up and, give a testimony. But I think that history kind of leads us to where we are today, which is really to focus on not only what's happening in the world and in the US and all those things, but what's happening here in Ventura. My department and my team thinks a lot about how we can engage locally with issues, and the organization's doing all the work on the ground. And folks like Tomas and others at Food and Water Watch, and other local organizations. And just for context too, so Patagonia, we've always been headquartered in Ventura. We have 700 employees who actually live in Ventura and Santa Barbara counties. And a lot of what happens locally impacts those folks. So, it's important to our business. It's important to kind of our mission as an organization. And a lot of those folks who come to work at Patagonia come because of that commitment to social and environmental work. And so we feel a lot of responsibility and urgency in engaging locally for all those reasons. And we've worked on the west side of Ventura, where we're headquartered, on the gas compressor station, and showing up in different ways. We worked on measures A and B and some of the other things that we've partnered on together. And yeah, I think for a lot of us, I moved to California from Washington State. And I was like pretty shocked by the amount of oil and gas infrastructure actually in Ventura. I just didn't know that much about Ventura, to be honest, when I moved here. And I love the community here, and I love this place. And so, a lot of our employees are aware of that, but we've tried to work hard to bring our employees more into what's happening locally. And I think when you engage in local issues, you can actually do so much more. You can be more impactful. You can bring more resources. I think for us, we try to think about really creative ways where we can activate our employees or host community meetings or coalition meetings. How do we use our physical space to support all the hard work that's happening on the ground and in the field? And so, yeah, I think where you can engage locally, it always feels like to me where you can potentially be a little bit more impactful, and it feels meaningful in multiple ways, I think.
Definitely. Yeah, no, definitely. Just like you said, your voice is louder locally, but also your voice is louder too if you have like a company like Patagonia behind us, which has definitely helped us at these hearings and stuff. And yeah, like when Ryan will show up, the CEO will give testimony at a city council meeting. It's like, because usually the oil industry loves to bring businesses on our
Yeah.
side, this and that. It's like, no, one of our biggest employers is here, and y'all really walk the walk, like from the founders, from the CEOs. Like Yvon Chouinard was actually at one of those rallies against the gas compressor. So it's like
Mhm.
there are those walking sticks and his little dogs. It's like there's a billionaire here at our. But no, it's just great to see it, like, and it really shows like that commitment from Yvon is like always been there with the company, and
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, and
great.
I think, I mean, being like a larger company, I think it can sometimes feel like, you know, that like local issues can be too small, but the reality is they're not. And I think I'd say for me as an employee of Patagonia who gets to do this work, I think the commitment across all levels of the company that like, no, Ventura issues matter. These issues are just as important as any issue. And so I think
Yeah.
seeing that commitment at those levels is really uh, empowering to a lot of us who work here.
Definitely. And on that topic of affecting policy and change, and helping use your voice or space too, a few months ago, Food and Water Watch, Patagonia, and other allied groups in the area, we organized what we called the Toxic Tour, where we took elected officials on a tour of all the oil and gas sites in the area, but also the new head regulator of all oil and gas in California, Doug Ito. So it was a really important time to like set the stage for him. We gave him tours of a lot. We gave them firsthand of site tours of oil impacting communities. Also how Ventura is unique to other areas with our laws, and how the oil industry undermined our democracy recently. So can you talk a little bit about the tour, or why it's important to center frontline communities in this work, and how we're working to directly target elected officials who have authority to make these changes?
Yeah, that tour was so well executed, and I was just so impressed by like all the organizations who came together to make that happen. I was really excited and happy that we were able to play a role. We hosted a lunch on our campus, and our CEO and our VP of environmental activism, my boss, was able to join for the lunch. And what I'll say is that during that lunch, I did talk to a few of the folks from those agencies and those decision makers. And like they had never visited Ventura before. They hadn't actually participated in a toxic tour before. And so I think it was just like such evidence to me that these things are so critically important, because I think, one, it gives an opportunity for frontline folks who are impacted where they live to speak to it in their space, whereas I think oftentimes we're going to the spaces of decision makers to tell them about our issues, but for them to come and see like this is a home, this is a community. I think it's really powerful to hear those stories firsthand. um, and I do think it's really easy for decision makers and folks like that to kind of get stuck in their bubbles and not really always see or hear what's actually happening on the ground. And I think when they can hear those things firsthand, the hope is that they're hearing and seeing things that then when they're making those policies and regulations, that they're thinking of those people that they met and heard from, so that hopefully those policies and things are actually benefiting the folks who are impacted the most. And um, so I do think those toxic tours can be so incredibly valuable. I think the other thing that I've seen, and I'm sure is, part of why toxic tours and putting those on, because I know it's a big effort. I know it's a lot of work for the organizations to do that. but it further cements relationships. I think when you spend time with people in person, it just helps one humanize you, because I think oftentimes as advocates we're maybe we're a bit of like pains in their butts, and so when you can like put a face to someone's like letter or emails or whatnot, um I do think I've found that it's easier to get a response from those folks when I can remind them, like, oh, we had lunch together, or oh, we did this thing together. And so I think when, anytime you can get those folks out on the ground and out of their own spaces and out of their comfort zone, I do feel like it can be really powerful. The impacts of it, I'm sure, not always immediately seen, but I am really hopeful for what can come out of that tour, that we were all able to participate in.
Definitely. And yeah, like you said, like getting to them early and like it was his first week on the job and making
Yeah.
those connections. So like he's talked to mothers and people there too. And Doug really spent extra time too during the tour talking to them individually. So he was definitely affected. That we had a little debrief after with them and they were really moved by it. Like a lot of them had never been to any of these places like you were saying. And that's what we've done too. That's how we got the SoCal gas compressor pause, which was a huge victory. We probably
Right.
don't have time to go into that at all, but it was because they heard from parents. Like we set up a bilingual hearing. We do grassroots organizing of bringing the frontline community members to talk to those decision makers because they're never going to hear them or usually don't hear them. So that's really been the biggest part of a lot of these victories, from the setbacks that we won here locally to the gas compressors. So yeah, a big shout out again to Patagonia for hosting us. Again, the people from the oil agency, CalGem, they were impressed that local activists, you guys know Patagonia? And then like, I was sitting at a table with Ryan, the CEO, and like he was just being very modest. He's like, I work at Patagonia, and like no one was really paying attention. I was like, he's the CEO of Patagonia, and then everyone was like, oh, paying attention to him at our table. So it helps like getting frontline community voices, but also having the backup of big organizations like yourself. So, do we have time for one more question? How are we doing on time?
Yeah, let's do one more quick question and then we'll pass it to Chirag.
Perfect. So, yeah, my final question then is, so why do you think it's so important for advocacy organizations like Food and Water Watch and like Patagonia to exist? And what strength do you think Food and Water Watch brings to the movement?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm so grateful for you all and like the partnerships that we do get to have. I really do feel like we need everyone to participate if we're going to make this world a better place. And it can't just be left to frontline communities to defend for themselves, or even advocacy organizations to do it all themselves. And certainly governments can be, I don't know, a toss up. And then I think, when we do come together, all parts of society, to advocate around a common goal, I think that's where you can see a lot of success, and we all do have a unique role to play. Before Patagonia, I worked for a number of small organizations and coalitions. And when I came to work for Patagonia, I have to be honest, I was super skeptical to this idea that business could like do anything good. I was like, I don't know about this experiment. Um, and I think what I've learned through my time is that Patagonia is only as useful or powerful as our partnerships with advocacy organizations and frontline communities who have been doing so much of the hard, persistent work. So organizations like Food and Water Watch pushing for the change that you all do is so critically important to Patagonia being able to engage and be meaningful in this space. I don't believe that business can save the world, even working for a business. But I do think when business, advocacy organizations, governments, and civil society can come together, I think there's something really powerful there. And we all have a different, I already said it, a unique role to play. And I think where we can lean into that and where we can be, better partners to you all. And that's what I get excited about when I think about the daunting world that we live in at the moment. I mean, I feel like I'm continually learning from you all, and even, the rest of the briefing today. I'm excited to hear more of what you all are working on, because you all keep us sharper and knowing where we can participate and how we can be better partners and allies. So I just feel so grateful that we are even invited into advocacy spaces with organizations like you all. So really, it's like, thank you.
No, yeah, no, no, thank you. Thank you. No, it really is like, yeah, no, Patagonia, like like I said, like there could be other big nonprofits or companies that come in and take up a lot of space. Like you are all very intentional about the way you enter community and organize in our own community too. So again, thank you so much for joining, Allison.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I want to thank everyone else here too, because like we've been talking about this conversation, it's not just one person, one voice. It's going to take us all to really get the climate solutions we need. So I want to thank Patagonia again for the strong allyship. I'll see you at our next coalition
Yeah.
meeting for Westside Clean Air Council. And yeah, I'll kick it back over to our program with Chirag.
Perfect. Thank you, Tomas. And thank you, Allison, as well. And definitely a big thank you to everyone who has joined us tonight and for all your support to make this work possible. Again, my name is Chirag Bhakta, the California director here at Food and Water Watch. Been here for about a year and a half now. And like Tomas has mentioned, we have huge opportunities this year to work towards stopping the expansion of oil and gas drilling in California, which really leads me to our work to fight back against false solutions that would only preserve and expand and extend the time of oil and gas infrastructure here. So I'm going to start off with carbon capture and sequestration. Now, CCS is the process of trapping and storing climate pollution before it enters the atmosphere. Quick note on that, it has never worked in the real world. And the strongest advocates and embracers of CCS are major polluters, oil and gas companies, because they know it allows for their fossil fuel infrastructure to remain intact. So we're currently working hard to ensure CCS projects do not gain a foothold in California, and we're focusing on two main projects. The first one is the Montezuma CCS project, which is slated for the eastern and northeastern part of the Bay Area. Its aim is to capture carbon from Bay Area refineries and create an extensive pipeline network, both above ground and underwater, and to then inject that CO2 into the Montezuma wetlands along the Sacramento and San Joaquin rivers. Currently, what we're doing is we're meeting with local electeds and groups for early opposition to this project. And we've really gotten ahead of the media narrative on this as well by us getting an op-ed published in the San Jose Mercury News. Another project that we're working on and fighting against is the Elk Hills CCS project down in Kern County. It's slated for the Kern oil fields, which is right outside of Bakersfield. Now, this is the first CCS project to get permit intent in California from EPA Region 9. This has to go through a federal approval process. So the EPA is the group that gets involved along with local approval as well. And there was actually a hearing scheduled in March for local approval at the Kern County Planning Commission. But thanks to a lot of our statewide allies and local allies putting immense pressure against this project, they actually decided to delay this hearing until August. And this is really notable because, as many of you may know, it takes a lot of heat for Kern County to move a hearing on a project that they really want to approve. So definitely a big shout out to not just us, but a lot of the allies and the on-the-ground organizers that worked on this. Moving on to hydrogen, which is used as a smokescreen for fossil fuel interests to expand dangerous pipelines or power plants that would otherwise be retired in a shift to clean energy. And of course, as we know, hydrogen is not clean energy. You cannot make hydrogen without actually blending it with fossil fuels and an immense amount of water, which California cannot afford either. So here in California, what we're doing is Los Angeles is currently trying to create a hydrogen hub. And we are fighting back against specifically the Angeles Link project that is proposed by SoCal Gas. which would create a network of pipelines to actually transport that dangerous fuel through LA and continue the legacy of environmental racism in urban communities. We're also pushing for the closure of current fossil fuel infrastructure at Aliso Canyon, which is the home of the largest methane blowout in US history, Playa del Rey, and Scattergood facilities, so as not to have them remain open for hydrogen production and storage. And then now moving on a bit from our statewide fossil fuel work to our statewide factory farms work. Factory farms is a major priority for us here in California and across the country for Food and Water Watch. I'll start off with our work on the LCFS program. So this is a low carbon fuel standard. This is a program that is under the California Air Resources Board, or CARB for short. And it's a very lucrative program that it has many things, one of which is that it allows fossil fuel companies, most notably Chevron, Shell, and BP, to buy credits from factory farms. And these include mega dairies, poultry farms, and hog farms, who create biogas from manure and other waste products. So it's just so the big oil companies can offset their carbon emissions. LCFS is supposed to be a program that reduces impacts on climate change. However, what it's leading to right now is actually increased incentives for factory farms to expand their operations and increase their herd sizes, which also leads to increased methane pollution. And we know methane in many ways is a lot more dangerous than carbon, and methane also is not currently covered within the LCFS program. So what this program does right now is it really solidifies and gives, monetary reason for this alliance between big oil and factory farms. So when CARB opened up a rulemaking process, allowing us to provide comment on the program, they did this 3 days before Christmas. Purposely, I will add that they did it 3 days before Christmas, before we were all going on break. We sprung into action. We were ready for this. And so we actually ended up submitting over 2,000 comments and a letter signed by over 160 organizations calling on CARB to remove the incentives for factory farm biogas. And we know that this has made a major impact, both from some media that we got on this, but also because they also had a hearing scheduled for March on this issue, and they have delayed it and pushed it back to sometime this year. We know that if they hold a hearing on this, they know that if they hold a hearing on this, there's going to be hundreds of people showing up, criticizing the program and calling out the fact that a program that's supposed to be helping our impacts on climate change is actually incentivizing reasons to make it worse and increase pollutions. And with this, the work that we did on LCFS in California was not just a statewide effort. We actually engaged our national factory farm team on this, because it's not just a California problem. Factory farms from all over the country can be utilized in the LCFS program. And we've seen farms in Wisconsin, Iowa, and North Carolina, just to name a few, participate in this. We'll see what happens with this as the year goes on, but it's very promising to see that our engagement work is really truly impacting their perspectives and how they're thinking about bringing this out to the public. And then lastly, on factory farms, we're currently in the early stages of running a factory farm moratorium bill at the California legislature next year. So that'll be really exciting when we get to that point. We're currently talking to a couple possible sponsors on that. And this is work that is similar to things that we have done also in Oregon and New Mexico as well. All of this comes in the context of California's ongoing water crisis. With last year's winter bringing atmospheric rivers and historic flooding, and the 2023-24 water year being about average, the long-term outlook continues to be dim as our climate continues to change. All these demands that we spoke about in the campaigns earlier connect directly to our multi-year statewide campaign, Protect California's Water, which is the backbone of our work in California. Here we're calling for an end on new oil and gas drilling permits, including reworks, to put a moratorium on new factory farms, and to stop the expansion of thirsty almond, pistachio, and alfalfa farming. These industries are not only climate change causing industries, but are also the leading guzzlers of our precious water resources. So throughout this year, we're going to continue to call out corporate water abuse and exploitation and the impact it has on people. We're actually planning a second trip to the Central Valley to follow up from our initial trip in October 2022. This is about a month. I was about a month into the job when this happened, where we went to a place called Tombstone Territory, which is a little bit southeast of Fresno, where everyone in that community is reliant on personal wells for their drinking water. Now, these wells have been drying up for a number of years now, particularly due to the over extraction of groundwater by large agricultural operations. And so we first conducted research, spoke with families, and collected their really heart-wrenching stories of the most directly impacted by the water crisis. These are some of the people that make up that 1 million plus figure of Californians who currently do not have access to clean, affordable water. And this is true in 2022, and it's still true in 2024. These are families who are now dependent on a state water program that doesn't deliver enough, and families whose kids have been actually picked on at school because they actually have to ration showers. So now let's hear from a couple people that we met, Carolina and Domingo, in a short video.
Sabía como dónde buscar ayuda, no sabía qué hacer y fue muy, muy duro como el no tener agua porque pues estábamos acostumbrados a bañarnos y abrir el agua. Fue muy duro porque muchas veces mis hijos se quedaron sin bañar y empecé yo como a desesperarme. Yo decía, ay, ¿qué voy a hacer? Ya cuando pasaban más días, ¿y qué voy a hacer? Porque es difícil con hijos y más que todo como van a la escuela. Poquito me sentía mal yo más que todo por mis hijos. Yo no quisiera que nadie más pasara lo que nosotros pasamos porque son días de desesperación, me recuerdo. Es muy duro vivir sin agua, es muy duro pasar, como le digo, estamos tan acostumbrados que abremos el agua y no tener es algo muy duro. Yo siempre, en todas las entrevistas que he hecho, les digo que cuiden el agua. He aprendido a valorar el agua.
That's the dilemma we have right now. The companies that I talked to, they said they cannot go in the same hole the well is right now. They have to dig another one, a new one. And that one is going to be over $35,000 to get it. And you know, in this neighborhood, nobody had $35,000 to pay to drill it.
Yo creo que nosotros también pagamos como las taxas, aunque vivimos como en un lugar pequeño como este. Creo que tenemos el derecho a que nos escuche también, ¿verdad? Aunque es una área que es muy pequeña, pero creo que como humanos tenemos los mismos derechos que tienen los que viven en un pueblo, ¿verdad? Creo que no es... quiero que se toquen el corazón para que nos den el valor que nos merecemos todos como humanos, ¿verdad? Y creo que pues como los rancheros, creo que hay una solución de que ellos hicieran de que no se rieguen con tanta agua porque por causa de ellos nuestros pozos se están secando porque los pozos de nosotros son más pequeños y no tenemos nosotros como el dinero para pagar para un pozo más grande.
Governor Newsom, I would say this, that he had to look at people that they're not as elaborate as other people, especially the farmers, because we here in this community, we need water. We have families here that live in this area. To me, I said, Governor Newsom, you need to get in the ball and give us the water. Make some kind of allocation and give it to us. We need it for our children and our families. So people and the communities, please help us out and go forward and go talk to your congressman, even call the governor and tell him what we need. We need water. We need allegations to have it done, and we need it right now. We don't have to wait too long because it is going too fast, too quick. We need help.
Y creo que esa sería la solución y quisiera que nos escuchen porque tenemos nuestros hijos y necesitamos el agua.
You know, it's really difficult to hear that and not be moved by their stories and their experiences from our neighbors in the Central Valley. You know, we published a really great report on this issue after our trip of dry wells and sharing their stories and also the stories of another family. So please check that out if you have the time. And just really quickly, we actually have some really kind of, not to have a abrupt transition from that to some breaking news that's actually really good on the groundwater regulation front. But you know, just last night at a hearing of the State Water Board, they voted to finally up the enforcement of groundwater extraction by Big Ag in the Tulare Lake area, which is about 60 miles south of Fresno. That's really great news moving forward our work for the state to fully enforce rules that will hold water abusers accountable and hopefully help the situation for many who don't have access to water. Now, for all this, now all this work to win on our issues of fossil fuels, water, and factory farms is not possible without our volunteers who give their time and work diligently with us. You know, we know that in order to get this work done, we need to be on the ground in the field doing grassroots organizing. We currently have 4 volunteer teams in California. We actually launched our California statewide team last year with our PCW campaign. We also just launched our Food and Water Team Bay Area this year with the addition of our Northern California organizer, who you'll meet in the next slide. And we have existing teams in the Central Coast and in Los Angeles. And I just want to take this opportunity before we move into questions to also shout out our wonderful California organizing team, who really make the magic happen and who really are responsible for much of the work we've talked about tonight. So there you see Tomas on the left, who we heard from, and then right behind me in the middle is Isabel Penman, who is our new Northern California organizer, and Andrea Vega on the right, who is our senior Southern California organizer based out of LA. So, before we move on to questions, I really just do want to thank all of you for all the support that you do and that you give to make this work possible. We really wouldn't be able to have the capacity to do what we do without that support. So thank you very much again. Kate, I'll pass it back to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Chirag, and thank you, Tomas, for that great overview of the work that we're doing. We do have some time now for questions from the audience. So if you have any, you can feel free to raise your hand, come off mute, ask your question, or go ahead and type it in the chat. I did see that Polly put one in for you, Chirag, when you were talking about CCS. Maybe we could just answer that one real quick. Where does the funding for CCS come from? Is that the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act and the Inflation Reduction Act?
Yeah, there is funding for CCS in the IRA, definitely. So there are federal funds for both CCS and hydrogen, actually, that are available.
Great, thank you.
So these are issues that are also these false solutions are being subsidized by the federal government as well, unfortunately.
Claudia, I see you have a hand.
Thank you for that presentation. I cannot believe how much valuable information you fit into an hour-long presentation, but I just feel really informed and really up to date on the work you've been doing. And I just want to express my appreciation for the wonderful work you're doing. But one thing I've noticed about your work in the couple of years that I've been observing the work is you take on really bold fights. You don't shy away from really challenging fights. So I just really admire the fact that the organization does that. And just one real quick thing on wow, it was really upsetting to hear about these families that don't have access to water on the in the Central Valley. And we just got a request from an organization that is in the Cuyama Valley, which is at the very northern end of Santa Barbara County, where it borders Kern County. And they have been having corporate carrot growers over extracting. And there's a concern there that there's not going to be water for the families or for the smaller farms. And so just wanted to put that on your radar because they just, when I was hearing about Tombstone, it made me think of Cuyama. But thank you again.
No, yeah, thanks, Claudia. And that's Grimway, right? Right? Is that the Grimway growers?
That's right.
Yeah, no, yeah, we've been hearing about that. But yeah, no, thanks for flagging that. And yeah, thanks for highlighting that. That's what brought me to this organization. I wouldn't be working for an organization, but they came and they believed in like a ban on fracking before even all the other organizations. So like people are like, oh, that's not realistic. You can't do setbacks. Like we don't even have them. But it's like, yeah, like we fight for it and and we're not gonna stop. So thanks for appreciating that.
And yeah, just to piggyback off that a little bit, I have a question as well. Circling back to the referendum, that's obviously going to be a big fight, and it's going to take a lot of people power, a lot of organizations, and everyone who's here with us tonight to make sure that we succeed. Tomas, wondering if you could just tell us a little bit more about that and what Food and Water Watch's plans are and what's really setting us apart in this space in the work that we're going to be doing on the referendum.
Yeah, no, just even going back to like my own experience, how I got involved with Food and Water Watch is, yeah, they really understand the importance of policy, research, advocacy, and people power. And like they understood like the threats of fracking throughout the US. And then when they saw that a local community was like mounting up the resources to fight fracking here, like they came in and gave us that support and believed in this fight and believed in people power. And that's how we won those elections, by going door to door and winning it. So our theory of change is really like what sets us apart, and we're going to be doing that again here for the referendum. We've just opened a PAC, so we're going to be able to do a lot more volunteer, but also maybe paid canvassing and hire some staff too. When we were fighting, the other reason why we've seen this playbook play out here in Ventura County in 2022, the oil industry really tried to undermine our local democracy and lied to our voters, and we set up a PAC here locally too to help fight. Unfortunately, they outspent us, and it was a low turnout primary election. So even though we put up our best fight, we only lost by a couple points, and polling showed that we should have done a lot worse. But the reason was like we were spearheading that. We created that PAC. A lot of organizations, maybe they shy away. Like I know this is a C3 call, but like they shy away from like the electoral side of stuff. And we had to understand that it's all connected, but also bringing in powerful voices like Patagonia, our local superpowers. So like being able to like, we're very strategic about how we take on fights, and because we're taking on some of these biggest fights and we can't be doing it alone, but we're very strategic about it. And our theory of change always focuses on people power, empowering the people on the ground. And that's how I got my start here at Food and Water Watch. So yeah, I think we're in a good position. We're way better than we were in Ventura County because it's a general election. And also you're going to be voting yes to keep the law. They just changed the law for the statewide stuff for referendums. Usually you had to vote yes or no. Here in Ventura County, we had to get people to vote yes, which was pretty hard. But on the law, on the referendum, it's going to say, yes, do you want to keep this law that protects our schools and homes from oil wells? It's pretty straightforward. Ours is very wonky, so we're already starting in a way better position. Polling's looking good, especially after the question got changed. So like I said, we're ready for round 2 here in Ventura County, and statewide, Food and Water Watch are going to be working to make sure that this referendum gets passed. And
Awesome.
we keep the law. Remember that. Keep the law. Tell your friends and family. Keep.
Yes. Great. Well, we have time for a couple more questions if anyone wants to either raise their hand or type something in the chat. I can give you all a minute or two to think of any other questions that you might have. And in the meantime, Chirag, maybe you could tell us, we've talked about a lot of different campaigns that we're working on. And as I think you kind of laid out, a lot of these are long-term, multi-year fights that will feed into future years. So can you talk about how some of the work that we're doing this year is part of our longer term strategy, getting us towards our goals that we've set for ourselves a few years down the road?
Yeah, definitely. I think we're actually in a great position this year to really move forward our priorities and set the energy to take us into next year. First off, with our work on LCFS, to both elevate the issue with the media and legislatures, puts us in a position, and it's in a strong position, I would say, to get a bill introduced for a moratorium on new factory farms, the bill that I was talking about a few minutes ago. And then, the fracking ban leads us directly into the November ballot measure on setbacks. And Owen here, would buy in from the people at the ballot box, saying that we do not want neighborhood drilling in California, would put so much energy, I would think, into our larger demand to stop all oil and gas drilling permitting in California, right? And so we're really determined to show, by as wide of a margin as we can make it, that Californians not only do not want drilling in their neighborhoods, but that we should be put on the right path towards a fossil-free future, for sure. And, as many of you know, in California, we have a gubernatorial election coming up in 2026. And we really believe that with this work over this year and next year, we can elevate our issues to the candidates running for that seat.
Thank you. I see two more hands raised. So Marilyn, I'll come to you first.
Okay. Hold on. How do I put my hand down?
Oh, that's okay. You can go ahead. I can put it down for you.
So can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
So first of all, of course, thank you for all the amazing work you do. And this is a must win with the referendum, but I really appreciate the point you made, Chirag, about a big margin. I think it's really important for people to understand it's not just a win, it's got to be a big win. Here's my question. Because I'm in a world of relatively affluent people, and I feel very strongly about talking to them. And I noticed in the film, Dear President Biden, but also in your conversation, which I so appreciate, the sort of racial disparities with respect to water and pollution. And we are under a complete illusion if us affluent people think we're going to escape the negative impacts of drought and oil and carbon. Please tell me what you think about what I just said.
I would agree. I don't think anyone, regardless of income level or tax bracket, I mean, well, I guess people are buying bunkers in far off islands to take their private jets to, but everyone except them, I guess, is not immune from the impacts of climate change and not immune from the impacts of drought in California at all. I mean, we're in the Bay Area. Maryland, it's good to see you again. We met at Craig's houseboat. I think Craig's also on the call too. Yeah, there he is.
Yes, I remember that wonderful event. It was great to meet you.
Yeah, and it's
Thank
in the
you,
Bay
Craig.
Area. We're somewhat lucky in terms of where our water source is, but when we're going to have a report on wildfires coming out in the next couple months, and we know very well that the impacts of climate change are creating worse and worse wildfires and much more devastation. And we see it. We had our orange sky. We have soot in the air and pollution as well. And there's just kind of kind of around this issue of kind of climate change and the impacts that it has on folks. Air quality issues are major for anyone living in California, but really anyone living on the planet now. There unfortunately isn't a single pocket of air on the planet that doesn't have microplastics in it and plastic pollutions, right? We
Right.
also do a lot of work against plastics and PFAS everywhere, and so it's
great.
too
What you're
late to
doing is
escape.
great. Yes. Thank you.
Thanks for your question, Marilyn. I know we're a little past time, but I see Polly has her hand raised, so let's make sure we get to you, Polly.
Thank you. Thank you. I just wanted to, I was thinking back over the messages that we had heard tonight, and definitely, the fracking initiative and referendum, but also about the water. I wanted to ask you, in the LA Times, there was an article maybe 3 weeks ago about that Governor Newsom is in support of certain things like filling up, I think it's stormwater capture. And there were certain things that you read the article and you went, boy, I agree with everything. And then it slipped in. And of course, he's pushing for the Delta Tunnel. And then it was hard because it's kind of like what I'm saying about the IRA. We love the IRA, but then the IRA did CCS. And we, love stormwater capture, but now Governor Newsom is saying also about the Delta. And it becomes hard to talk with people and say, well, I like this, but I don't like that. And I just wanted to know what you thought about all that. And do you think maybe it's a done deal with the Delta? It's going to happen. And that it's not worth the time to fight it now. It's finished. I just don't know. I wanted to ask what you thought.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the reasons why it's really important in our theory of change that we target specific decision makers who actually have the power to change things. That's why we target Governor Newsom a lot. With the Delta Tunnel, and then previously with Governor Brown's tunnels, he
Wind
wanted to
tunnel.
build two.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We already got it. We're already defeating it little by little.
Yeah, I would say it's actually not a done deal, Polly. They did get approval from the Department of Water Resources in December, I think, late last year, but they have to go through multiple approval processes that gives us opportunities to engage our folks, activate our members and groups, and folks like you from around the state to really push back against this, right? Like they've gone through one step of the process, but I think we've been successful partially because of this long delay, right? Like if we didn't push back as many years as we did, Governor Brown would have got both those tunnels through, right? And thankfully, folks like us, we work in coalition with Restore the Delta as well, which is one of the main groups that's working in the San Joaquin area to fight back against this project, to ensure that at every opportunity that we get, we can not just be not just put a wrench in the machine, but to really do our best to stop it, right? So I would say it's not a done deal yet. We have multiple opportunities into the future to really have our voices heard and to kind of grow the opposition as best we can.
Definitely. And I just want to add on that too, because when I started back in 2014, one of my coworkers, Brenna, who's working in LA, she was working definitely on the Delta tunnels for a long time. I remember then too, that was his pet project. He wanted those, the twin tunnels, and hearing after hearing, it just got stopped and delayed. And like, this is just kind of like the remnants of that pipe dream of Governor Brown. So like, I see us winning in this battle in the long term, but yeah, it's not the time to give up now, because yeah, the longer we delay, the more in our favor it is, and we need real practical solutions, and we're going to be filling them up with that in the meantime.
Thank you very, very much for all of this.
I just want to thank you all as well for joining us here for this evening, for being part of this conversation, for engaging with us in this discussion and on these issues. Chirag and Tomas both said this, but we truly can't do this work without you. It's your support and activism that's really driving all of this work and making sure that decision makers in California and beyond are really hearing us on these issues. And that's what's making the progress that we're seeing possible. And that's what's going to help us keep getting even closer to our goals. So yeah, just wanted to thank you all again for coming. We are going to share tomorrow the recording of tonight's conversation, and we'll also include some of the resources that we shared in the chat today and a couple of other follow-up articles and resources that might be useful and informative for you. And we'll also share some upcoming events that we are hosting next week as part of our Earth Day and Earth Week celebrations. And yeah, our team is always happy to chat with you further, to dive deeper on these issues. You're welcome to reach out to us at any time with any questions that you may have. So thank you again. We're grateful to you all, and I hope that you all have a really wonderful evening.
Bye, y'all.